When I was 6 years old, I knew exactly what love was. Love was whatever these two crazy bisexuals had going on. Love was what they would sing about in Sanjay Jr. songs. Love was what I felt for my beautiful husband, Cubix the robot. And love was what allowed Clara to see past the invisible barrier set up by the Mouse King, trapping her dear Nutcracker on the other side. And although she could not see him or even hear him, she still felt his presence and smashed through the invisible glass, taking her beloved into her arms in a tight embrace. But I'm getting ahead of myself. One thing I have come to believe is that Nutcracker adaptations, especially the ones aimed at children, carry the potential merit of being someone's first introduction to E.T.A. Hoffman's tale, or to Tchaikovsky's music inspired by the short story. Not that the value of these adaptations is solely limited by the possibility of pointing towards the original work, but I appreciate the idea that it might spark the interest in something the child might never have thought to look into if not for the reimagining of this tale for a modern or younger audience. Barbie and the Nutcracker was my adaptation of choice. Released in 2001 by Mattel, it marks Barbie's debut as the protagonist of her own full-length CGI animated movie, and it was the first film in a massive and still ongoing series of productions, being as popular as they are profitable. I first became aware of this film because one of my classmates brought the tape to kindergarten one time, and the whole class watched it together. But being the girly girl that I was, I'm sure I would have been introduced to the Barbie cinematic universe one way or another as time went on. Still, I'm thankful to have that memory to hold on to, as it was a rather nice experience. After that collective viewing, I asked my mom for my own copy of the tape, and surprisingly, she said yes. Meaning I could now watch this movie over and over and over again for as long as I wanted to. And, dear viewer, I did exactly that. Barbie and the Nutcracker became a monumental staple in my house. I watched it and rewatched it and outgrew it but watched it anyway. I put it on as background noise during my teenage years. I watched it with friends in college. I watched it as research for a video. I started this December project because of it. So, what does this adaptation bring to the table? Is there a reason for such high praise, or is this just another forgettable direct-to-video mess? I invite you to come along with me as we investigate these and many other questions together, such as why is the dancing so realistic, why is the voice acting so good, and why is the Nutcracker such a gosh darn hunk? I wanna talk about Barbie in the Nutcracker. We start off this movie, as Barbie films always did in the early days, with Barbie's supposedly little sister Kelly struggling to do something, and with Barbie chiming in to give her some advice. In this case, Kelly is trying to dance to the Nutcracker ballet, but she keeps messing up her steps and feels like giving up. Barbie then tells her that she has to be brave and keep trying, just like Clara from the story. Practice has now officially halted so that Barbie can tell her sister the Nutcracker tale, or really, Clara's tale. We first meet Clara as she stares into a snow globe, half lost in a daydream. In this version of the story, Clara and her little brother have lost their parents and are being raised by their strict grandfather Drosselmeyer, who is currently fussing over the dinner party that he is organizing. So right now you might be thinking, oh, so Drosselmeyer has been changed into Clara's grandfather for this version. But I'm here to tell you that no, not really. Because although the grandfather might be named Drosselmeyer, the true Drosselmeyer of this tale is Aunt Elizabeth Drosselmeyer, who also carries the last name and who fills in for the magician godfather perfectly. With this being the first adaptation I ever saw, I was shocked to find that in the original tale and the ballet, Drosselmeyer is a man. That is because Aunt Drosselmeyer had such an air of mystery and excitement surrounding her that I couldn't picture anyone else in that role. She is the hot single aunt with a seemingly endless fortune and lots of free time, spending her days traveling around the world and then stopping by to bring the children eccentric gifts. Clara is very excited to see Aunt Drosselmeyer, since that means she now gets to hear all of her aunt's wonderful stories about the sights she's seen and the people she's met. Her aunt tells her about visiting faraway lands and even dancing with kings, stuff that Clara could only dream of doing. But her aunt suggests that maybe next time, Clara could come with her. Clara seems apprehensive, knowing that her grandfather would never let her do something like that. Aunt Drosselmeyer then shares the gifts she's brought for the children, giving Clara's brother a couple of toy soldiers and bringing Clara an intricate Nutcracker doll, which the girl is genuinely taken by. As a side note, a detail I really like about this Nutcracker design is how his arm serves as the lever that moves his mouthpiece. Dolls like these usually have a lever on their back which is used for that purpose, but switching it to his arm makes the design more concise and less clunky. Clara's brother immediately fights her for the doll though, and breaks the cool arm I was just talking about. So then Clara fashions a little sash for him out of a ribbon. We never really see the Drosselmeyer Christmas party, as when we cut back to Clara again, she has fallen asleep on the couch after the guests have left, like a child who stayed up too late. This helps bring a sense of innocence to her character, which adds some extra flavor to the conversation her aunt and grandfather are having in the living room. The grandfather thinks that Clara is much too young to be out getting into adventures, and the aunt argues that Clara is ready to take on bigger challenges and deserves to see the world. Clara's design points more to her being a young adult, but coupled with more childish mannerisms, such as falling asleep on the couch, makes it seem like both caretakers have a point in this discussion. Just as the clock strikes midnight, though, some magic sparkles start floating around the room, bringing forth an army of mice, and also awakening her Nutcracker doll, who now fights against the creatures, and the dialogue suggests that there's some history behind the two sides we're not entirely aware of. As the fighting escalates, in comes the Mouse King, who is voiced by Tim Curry. And here, I gotta give props to the man. It would be very easy for him to see this project as being beneath him and just cash in another voice acting check and go home. But no, this man is having fun with it. The Mouse King character is brought to life by him, and it's delightful to hear him through the animation.
You're telling me that the Nutcracker, a wooden utensil...
Clara wakes up and, upon seeing the battle taking place in her living room, does something she's rarely allowed to do in these adaptations. She tries to join in. She's holding up a vase to the Mouse King and is absolutely ready to squash the guy. However, the king has a magic scepter and utters a spell that shrinks Clara down to the size of her dolls. The battle rages on. The Nutcracker's fighting, the mice are micing, Clara tosses her shoe at the Mouse King and knocks him down, and now she's stuck being rat-sized. The Nutcracker tells Clara that the only way to reverse the Mouse King's spell is to find the Sugar Plum Princess, a mythical figure that he also happens to be looking for, because it turns out he wasn't always a Nutcracker. Although what his original form once was, he's not willing to share. A magical wooden owl gives Clara a necklace that will transport her back home in her normal size once she finds the princess. And now Clara and her Nutcracker are ready to step into the rat hole portal that will take them to the distant land of Parthenia. Once they arrive, they find themselves stuck in an icy cave, but luckily some snowflake fairies come along to help. They perform a little dance for our heroes, clearly shipping the two, I can relate, and they smash the wall of ice open, revealing a matte painting. Wow, this is not 3D at all. The Nutcracker and Clara aren't even moving, come on! As a very mysterious side note, when they step out of the cave, Clara's snowy footsteps gently melt away as flowers grow in each spot. And if you're wondering what type of flower that is, they're called blossoms of foreshadowing. Thanks to his bat informant / handman, the Mouse King learns that Clara and the Nutcracker have made it to Parthenia, so he sends his soldiers to capture the two. Our heroes are currently examining a village that was destroyed by the Mouse Army, and Clara is very much not patting that horse's mane. Oh my god, that looks so bad. They find some kids and are chased by the rats, but then they're saved by these two guys and their little refugee tree camp. These are Major Mint and
Captain Candy,
who agreed to aid the Nutcracker in his search for the Sugar Plum Princess, even though Major Mint is skeptical about the whole ordeal since this princess is no more than a legend. The Mouse King is also looking for this princess, as he's worried that this figure might actually have the power to defeat him. But even after searching through all of the kingdom's archives, he cannot find any information about her aside from a brief and vague description. We learn more about the backstory of this kingdom. Before the Mouse King took over, Parthenia used to be ruled by a kind and fair king, who left his son in charge after he passed away. This son is Prince Eric, who felt like he wasn't ready to rule, and so he let the Mouse Royal advisor in charge until he felt like he had proven himself worthy. Except the mouse liked the power a bit too much, and decided to take the kingdom for himself. The subjects hate the Mouse King, but they also look down on Prince Eric, thinking that he is a coward. But the thing is, no one knows what became of him after the mouse took charge. Most subjects are too bitter to care, and the Nutcracker states that Prince Eric was destroyed. But Clara knows better. With the anticipation of their upcoming journey looming over their heads, Clara can't bring herself to sleep and finds the Nutcracker sitting by the edge of the treehouse camp, lit by the glow of the moonlight. The Nutcracker jokes that he doesn't need to sleep since he's just a wooden doll, but Clara tells him that she knows he is much more than that. Because he is Prince Eric. Stop the presses. I was flabbergasted, floored. 6-year-old me was sitting there, mouth agape, mind blown, G to the A to the double G-E-D. I mean, it's not a plot twist if you know literally anything about the Nutcracker. But I didn't. I was naive, innocent, a blank slate. And what an introduction to the lore that was. A prince under a curse. Delicious. I'm eating this up, straight up crunching on that VHS. Legend has it that in order to find the Sugar Plum Princess, one has to cross the Sea of Storms. The merry gang walks along the path leading them to the beach. Major Mint almost kills that guy, but then the Nutcracker detaches his own arm in order to rescue him, and it's so creepy but also so sexy. I love how much this movie plays up the fact that the Nutcracker is, in fact, a living doll made of wood.
That was very noble of you.
Girl, what else was he supposed to do? Let the men die? The bar is really on the floor these days. In searching for supplies, the Nutcracker takes Clara to an old well where some spring fairies are trapped, and once they're freed, they engage in a little magical dance that brings the valley back to life. They are also very aggressively shipping those two, and I am absolutely into it. They come so close to holding hands, I am losing my frickin' marbles. The Mouse King brought a stone giant to life in order to stop the Nutcracker's mission, and now that the monsters caught up with the gang, it seems like there's no way they can escape. But the winter fairies from earlier appear just in time, freezing the Sea of Storms, allowing it to be safely crossed, and the horse from earlier also shows up to give them a lift. No matter how fast they race though, the stone giant is unrelenting in its pursuit, and the ice is too thick for the monster to crack it and sink, so the Nutcracker decides to give it a little push.
Be careful!
Don't worry, wood floats.
Hi, this is me, losing my mind. I've been losing it for 22 years at this point. Please send help. They cross the Sea of Storms and reach an island, but it looks like Clara is having second thoughts about finding the princess. An earlier conversation on the carriage also exacerbates this feeling, as it seems that Clara is less and less ready to leave the land of Parthenia behind. She also tried to convince the Nutcracker that he doesn't need the Sugar Plum Princess to prove himself, as he's done plenty of brave deeds entirely on his own, but he is also not fully convinced that he is worthy of ruling. The gang walks into the castle, but oh crap, it was actually a trap set up by the bat. Now, you might be wondering, how did they not realize that the castle was a painting? And to that I say, they're just very used to how sometimes their world is a matte painting instead of 3D, so this was just another Tuesday for them. Clara evades capture and hangs around the island, wondering if it's best to just go back home already. But she quickly snaps out of it, realizing her friends are counting on her. Just then, the spring fairies show up to offer her a lift, and she flies over the sea into the Mouse King's castle. God, I just realized they leave the horse behind. It's just stuck forever on that island now. Poor Marzipan. The fairies rally up the villagers, suggesting they just frickin' beat the mouse up, and the Mouse King prepares a ceremonial bonfire to burn the Nutcracker to a crisp. And then we get the scene. Clara tricks the mouse guards into leaving their posts and steps into the sealed room. She is shocked to find it empty, as she was sure this was where her friends were being kept. And it is. It's just that they've been placed behind an invisible barrier, which keeps the girl from seeing or hearing them. Clara thinks for a moment, wondering why the Mouse King would care to guard an empty room, and she carefully searches the dungeon, stumbling upon the barrier. Just then, the Nutcracker smiles, and it's almost like she can sense it somehow, smiling back at him, smashing the cursed glass and embracing him with all her might. This scene altered my brain chemistry. It shaped me into a different being. There is a before this scene and an after it. I was only 6 years old, but my world was changed forever. Back at the castle courtyard, all the villagers have gathered round, and there's like 30 people in here? I guess they couldn't afford many extras. The Nutcracker is ready for battle, parkouring down the walls and calling out the Mouse King, saying he will never be a ruler. The despot turns the villagers to stone and strikes at the Nutcracker, and a vicious battle begins taking place. The Mouse King makes himself bigger through magic and thoroughly beats the guy up. Just totally knocks him down. I'm on the edge of my seat here. Clara steps up to defend him, much like she did back at her house, but the Mouse King gears himself up for another spell, threatening to make Clara even smaller than she already is. At this, the Nutcracker musters up the strength for one last blow, using his sword to deflect the magic back at its origin, making the Mouse King curse himself. This takes out the Mouse King, but also the Nutcracker, who falls down in exhaustion. Clara frets over him, but he insists that he's not worth fretting over, to which she kisses him as she calls him a prince. And then, oh boy, did you think the bit about the Nutcracker being a prince was a plot twist? Get ready for this. Clara's kiss breaks the spell, transforming the Nutcracker back into Prince Eric. Which is weird, because only the Sugar Plum Princess should be able to break the Mouse King's spell. Except it's not weird, because Clara is the Sugar Plum Princess. She's just as confused as the audience, insisting that she couldn't be. But the prince reminds her of how, since the start of their journey, she has proven herself to be as kind, clever, and brave as the princess was rumored to be. And just to drive the point further, the entire land seems to be revitalized, glowing and flourishing as though awakened from a deep slumber. The real princess was within her all along. Does it make sense? Not really. Kind of. It does call back to the original story and ballet a bit, as Clara is crowned royalty there, but the Sugar Plum Fairy is mostly its own separate character. Which is why this movie is visionary. No one's doing it like her. 10 out of 10, no notes. All the villagers come back to life and everyone starts dancing, and Clara and the prince share a beautiful waltz together. Prince Eric asks Clara to stay and be his queen, and Clara says that this kingdom now feels like her true home. But just then, the Mouse King swoops in and steals her necklace, breaking it open, which sends Clara back to her house. She awakens in a frenzy, back to her normal size, and insists to her grandfather that the events of the previous night were all real, even though they sound like a dream. Worst of all, she can't find her Nutcracker anywhere. That's when Aunt Drosselmeyer strolls into the room, accompanied by a handsome young man who bears a striking resemblance to Prince Eric. As he gives Clara her lost necklace, his true identity is confirmed, and they share an intimate dance in the hall. And so, Barbie has finished telling her story, and Kelly feels inspired enough to give dancing one more try. She gets up and they practice the song from the top, and Kelly nails every step. The end. So, okay, hi. I'm obsessed. I've been obsessed since I was 6 years old. This movie is my Roman Empire. Modern Hollywood wishes it had what this movie has. The iron grip that this film had in my brain never relaxed, even after all these years. I kept wanting to talk about this movie and holding myself back, but it bled into my work anyway. The Nutcracker rambles I went on during my Barbie videos could have been half an hour long if I had no hinges left. I watched 24 Nutcracker adaptations just to get to this moment. I am chronically incapable of shutting up. The romance, the poetry. Both Clara and Eric had to go through this journey to reveal their true selves. Eric because he'd been cursed into hiding it and had never truly felt like himself before he learned he was in fact capable of being brave like he was in his travels. And Clara, who was stuck on the cusp of womanhood and independence, held back by society standards she didn't fully commit to, and who truly flourished by learning to trust herself. Both of them are kind and selfless, and think more highly of each other than they do of themselves. Clara had always insisted Eric was in fact just as courageous as he dreamed of being, but denies having that same fearlessness within. And Eric had always seen Clara as selfless and worthy, while being unable to see those same qualities in his own demeanor. When Aunt Drosselmeyer gifts Clara the Nutcracker, she says that he might look off on the outside, but on the inside beats the heart of a prince. And that's true for Clara as well, since she's been a princess all along. Not everything in this movie makes sense. There's this magical owl who's just like there, and it's never explained how she's connected to anything. There's no way of knowing how Aunt Drosselmeyer got the Nutcracker doll, or how she knew he was a prince, or how she found him at the end of the movie. But when she shows up with Eric by her side after the curse was lifted, you just trust her. Yes, Aunt Drosselmeyer is all that, and she would guide the prince back to her niece. We all wish we could be her. This movie is so intrinsically tied to the history of the Barbie cinematic universe that it's hard to discuss one without mentioning the other. It's so amusing to see them still working out the kinks and figuring out what kind of a story they wanted to tell. There's a rawness to this movie that other Barbie films don't really have. It lies in the matte paintings and the ugly side characters and the clunky CGI, and to me it just makes the final product even more easy to love. It is perfect in my heart, just the way it is. The idea of tying Barbie movies to the concept of ballet was so iconic. And Mattel really pulled no punches in this production, getting the New York City Ballet Master-in-Chief Peter Martins to do the choreography, using motion capture to record the movements of real-life ballet dancers in order to animate the dancing sequences. Ballet would become such a staple to the Barbie brand, especially in their movies, and it was flawless from the get-go. And as a Nutcracker adaptation, this slaps. It transforms these already established characters into their own people, with their own goals and conflicts and passions, allowing them to have action-packed and softer moments, and establishing a genuine connection between the two leads. The Nutcracker story hinges on the romance between Clara and the prince, and here it's so well constructed, in a way that these adaptations don't often flaunt. But even after all of that, you might be thinking it was kinda pointless of Barbie to spend 60 minutes telling her sister a story that had nothing to do with learning to dance as a way to get her motivated to practice dancing. And to that, I say, actually, this movie was about Clara learning to dance. When she first arrives at Parthenia, the snowflake fairies try to get her to copy their steps, but she's pretty bad at it. Later on, after she's gained some confidence thanks to her journey, the spring fairies make a similar attempt, and Clara's kinda getting into it now. This all culminates in when she becomes fully realized as the Sugar Plum Princess, because now she gets to take part in a flawless performance with her beloved. Turns out, the braver you are, the better you are at dancing. There is such love and passion and fun poured into this movie. It's a historical document, a masterpiece even. I have carried it with me all these years, and it brings me great joy to think of how many people shared a similar experience, linking us through time and space. This video is for them as much as it is for me. And if it's not this movie, then I'm sure a lot of people have their own little Nutcracker adaptation that they hold very dear to their hearts, and which introduced them to the world of the ballet, and to Tchaikovsky's wonderful music, or even to the original short story which inspired it all. I'm really glad to have watched all of these Nutcracker adaptations. I've been introduced to wonderful pieces of work that I would never have considered watching if not for this project. And the journey itself came from my genuine love for one of these adaptations. There is so much wonder to be gathered from these pieces, and I love to think of how each and every one of them are capable of bringing joy, entertainment, or greater respect for the original works. I hope I was able to introduce you to some interesting pieces, or to reminisce about their existence and the craftsmanship behind them. There are treasures everywhere if you know where to look. And sometimes, that place is a little VHS tape from 2001 that you watched in kindergarten and which has never left your brain. Thank you for watching. Wow, hello there. It was very nice of you to watch this video. Special thanks to my beautiful patrons for making videos like these possible. I would gift each of you a magical Nutcracker if I were your godfather. If you have enjoyed the video, you can also help me out by clicking the like button, subscribing to the channel, and clicking the notification bell too. You can also follow me on Twitter and share this video with your friends. Check out my second channel too if you have the time. The link to all of those things will be in the description. Feel free to leave a comment down below, especially if it is about how much you love Barbie in the Nutcracker. We did it, folks. 25 Nutcracker adaptations. Or 26? Stay tuned for tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye!
First of all, I was kind of astonished that she hadn't, made a movie before, because she is a sort of world star. And I thought it was kind of flattering to be in her movie.